Thank you so much. I know why my fictitious audience is in a good mood. Yeah, the Sundance Film Festival was held just about a month ago, and perfect timing too. It was right before WandaVision started getting good. It was a great experience for me. The Tulsa satellite screens were hosted by the local Circle Cinema, and I got to go to a couple of them at the Admiral Twin Drive-In as well. You know, as somebody who's loved movies and aspired to filmmakers, I've always wanted to go to the Sundance Film Festival, but I'm on a budget. I've never really been able to afford plane tickets to fly out and take time off work to go see it. But now I'm unemployed. And there's a pandemic, so it's virtual, so thank you, coronavirus. The standout movie my first night at Admiral Twin was Mass, by far. It was incredible. It's basically about two sets of grieving parents at opposite ends of a tragedy, so I expected good performances, but these were stellar. Not only that, but the direction and cinematography was amazing. The majority of the film is just two people or four people talking in a room, so every aspect, like the dialogue and blocking, it all has to be perfect for it to work. The camera work as well, it's very intentional here. There is minimal movement in the beginning, and as the plot gets going, there is a lot more shakes and a lot more handheld shots to reflect the mood of the scene. None of this would matter though if our four lead parents were bad, and each actor gets a moment to shine here. They all get powerful monologues and all knock them out of the park. Jason Isaacs is the most recognizable face here. If you're my age or younger and you don't know who that is, he played one of the Malfoys on Harry Potter. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. We're going to talk about Judas and the Black Messiah with Cornelius, but first, Ghost Dogs is an animated short that was shown at the Sundance Film Festival. I spoke with the director of this project. Let's get right to it. Okay, he is the animator and director behind Ghost Dogs, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in Tulsa, Oklahoma as part of Circle Cinema's satellite screening. He's Joe Cappa. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And let's start off right there. What was it like? How did you get involved in the Sundance Film Festival? And then what was it like to see your work on the big screen?
Yeah, we finished Ghost Dogs like around August of last year, and we premiered at Fantastic Fest, which was a big honor. It's a big genre film festival. And then we just didn't get into other film festivals that we were hoping to get into, a lot of like horror genre ones. So then we were feeling kind of deflated, and we're like, maybe we have to like retool this short film. And then we got a call from Sundance. They like called us directly. So that was amazing. We thought it was like a scam at first. But then the emails started coming in from Sundance. We're like, okay, this is legit. Okay, now we can start like bragging to people within the crew. But they told us like mid-November. We couldn't say anything until mid-December. So that was just like, it was just so hard keeping in that information. And then Sundance happened, and they've been like incredible. Sundance has been incredible with all their directors. You get like a cool gift package, which was really neat. But they also just kind of like held our hands through the entire process, trying to get as much exposure as we could out of it this year, and really just trying to get more eyes on our project since Sundance couldn't happen in person. So the virtual thing actually worked kind of in our favor in that just more people were able to see the film. So I was able to go back to Tulsa. They did a in-person screening, which a lot of projects didn't have that opportunity, but Tulsa was like really championing us. So Circle Cinema hooked up with Admiral Twin, and we were able to see it at the drive-in. So I don't know, it was really cool to see. Probably my biggest accomplishment yet in my career, and enjoy that with my family and like close friends that all came out. So it was truly a memorable experience.
Yeah, bringing it all back to Tulsa, where you're from, that's got to be a really memorable experience. I remember just seeing everything, going to something like this at the drive-in was very different. Everybody honking their horns after the showings and everything instead of clapping. There's just a lot of unique factors that come into something like this. What was the creative experience or the creative process behind something like this? I knew that it was going to be a horror short, based on the title and the description that I got as part of my handy packet, but there's really a uniqueness to the animation style, and the tone of this. There's some really funny moments in here. How did you come about with this whole this short film, and what was the process like of developing it?
Yeah, so it was like, I think it's like 10 years ago. I had an art show at an old art gallery in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I hadn't done like art in years leading up to that moment, and they asked for for an art show. So I kind of like taught myself watercolor painting. They're like really bad paintings, but I made these like dog characters with hands and legs, and I thought it was really funny. And then I got like a tablet to teach myself how to animate, to draw onto the computer and do frame by frame animation. And the Ghost Dogs characters was the first thing I toyed with, and I thought it looked really funny. So I was like, okay, let's try to make a full-on short, which I'd never done before. And so yeah, it was just a matter of teaching myself how to animate while making the movie. But I knew I wanted a kind of an old school look. So cell animation, I tried to like borrow from influences from a show that used to be on MTV called Liquid Television. And that was kind of the texture, the aesthetic of the film. And yeah, as far as like the comedy and the horror, I mean, my style's always just kind of been creepy, funny, kind of like melding the two, kind of like squishing those reactions from people into like one solid moment, so people like feel horrified and laughing at the same time. It's just I like movies like that. I like the emotional somersault it gives people. So that's what I try to do with my thing.
I liked that you were able to work that balance really well. I didn't. It's kind of hard to do because they seem pretty opposite. Having you really like on the edge of your seat, kind of uneasy feeling versus laughing, and then having that kind of tonal shift. It worked out really well. And I kind of thought I had an idea of where the ending was going to go. I thought it was all going to take one direction. Everything was going to be one way, but you took a very different direction. Was there anything behind did you have a vision about where you wanted it to end whenever you started the project, or how did you work your way there?
Yeah, I mean, coming up with the story, the actual story for Ghost Dogs was just a matter of storyboarding. So I was just trying shot to shot to shot to shot, and that's how I kind of came up with everything. And then I was able to kind of revise it, rework it. But like that ending scene was part of a larger storyboard that I ended up drawing in the first round, and it was just getting way too long, so I had to shorten it. But that moment, the ending, kind of happens about like a third of the way through the thing that I had made previously. So I don't know, it just worked. And when you're doing shot to shot to shot, I was just trying to make it like what would be the most interesting thing to happen next. And that's kind of just how the jokes and the scary gags all worked. I was just trying to be interesting.
What's kind of interesting about that is sometimes I've heard that sometimes you have this great script, or in your case a storyboard, and I think it was Aaron Sorkin who said if you sometimes take what you think is a finished work and then you just cut off the last little bit of it, sometimes you can have a very powerful ending, or without even realizing that you were already there. And I think that kind of might be what you're talking about a little bit, because you had a longer storyboard, but the way it ends in this kind of like, oh, did that just happen? Wait a second, what? Kind of, it really worked in the case for your film. So congratulations on that. Is there anything that you're working on that people should look out for in the future, or where they should find you online to keep in touch with you?
I mean, I'm working on some cartoon stuff, but it's all in the works right now. So who knows how people will see it, and if people will see like part of a larger project. So I just have a lot of things going on, and hopefully they lead to bigger and better things, including Ghost Dogs as well.
That seemed to be kind of what happened here. 10 years ago you had an idea, and look where it landed you. Joe Cappa,
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you, and I really look forward to following where you go in the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, joining me now to discuss Judas and the Black Messiah, my friend Cornelius Hawker. Hi, how are you doing, buddy?
I am doing well, Sam. It's so nice to see you, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining me. You just saw the movie this morning. What did you think of it?
I think that it shows what many of us Black folks knew all along. Even without seeing a movie like this, we know that for many years, and some would argue today, the government has always had it out for people of color, especially Black men. And in this movie, it showed that a Black man like Fred, who was, leading an uprising, it had the attention of the FBI and very powerful people. So I typically don't watch movies like this just because I don't want to see this history, like, because like I know it. I've never lived it, but like I know it. But yeah, it feels like a pretty accurate depiction, even though I've not read up on much of it after seeing the movie. But yeah, I liked it overall.
And it's really important to release something like this because I think a lot of people aren't aware of that history and the way it was able to tie into the true events, you know, and it's showing parts of the real interview there at the end. What did you think of these performances? You know, Daniel Kaluuya playing Fred Hampton and Lakeith Stanfield, I think, playing the person who ends up betraying him.
Yeah, there are depictions, especially Lakeith. I think it was Will, that was his name. It felt very realistic. You know, he's getting to know these people, and he feels like they're his friends, but then he's betraying them. And it was not surprising. Spoiler alert. Sorry, guys. It's not surprising that he committed suicide right after the PBS documentary was released. Because there has to be a lot of cognitive dissonance in your head, and you could see it at that ending interview, how the interview said, well, what do you want your son to think about the actions you did? And he said, I think I'm going to let your story speak, or cap it off, or speak for itself. So yes, very their portrayals were spot on, I felt like.
And then also some of the supporting cast as well. Martin Sheen with all that heavy prosthetics makeup playing J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, and that really tense scene between him and Jesse Plemons from Breaking Bad, where he asks some really uncomfortable questions. And again, going into, it's based on true events, showing just the bias between the Black Panther Party that there was at the time. Obviously, there was a really important supporting cast there as well.
Yeah, there was. Again, it just felt like those were the conversations that were happening in, halls of power. You had the FBI not only targeting, MLK and Malcolm X, but people like Fred, who was in Chicago, and it was a major city. And so you have to think how many other instances that we don't know about that they were targeting people in other cities. So yeah, it's very, very interesting and just very, I feel, accurate from the sense of the historical standpoint, that these conversations and conversations like that were actually happening.
And it had a really good, I think, sense of direction and blocking and cinematography as well. I remember there's one standout scene, I think, at the beginning when Lakeith, his character is trying to impersonate an FBI officer and tries to end up stealing a car. And I think the camera, it's done in like one take or one like tracking shot. That's really beautiful at the beginning. And I think a lot of the soundtrack included a lot of jazz music throughout as well. I thought that was really interesting.
I've played clarinet for 16 years now, and I have a music degree, and the music really centered you on where you were. So the jazz music during like the seedier scenes, that felt right. The music that they used for the beginning, like it all really worked together, and a lot of thought was put into this movie, obviously.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it. It's not often that you see, I thought it was interesting anyways, that jazz music used for like tension building, like in something like this. But there were just a lot of scenes, and again, it goes to the actor's credibility as well. A lot of these scenes felt really tense, and obviously with a movie like this, I remember there's that moment where Lakeith is in the middle of that chapel or whatever, and he's chanting along to Fred Hampton, but his boss at the FBI, Jesse Plemons, is there as well, impersonating someone watching him. And that was a really tense scene. And again, the way it was shot, to where you just see those two characters kind of having a stare off with each other. It was some really great performances. And again, the whole thing really kind of comes together, I think, really well. Do you have any final thoughts about anything else that stood out to you about this film?
Well, I mean, the scene where he was killed, you talked about how they shot things really well. They shot it from the perspective of the woman who loves him, and she's, getting handcuffed, and you hear their conversations. And of course, he's asleep. He's been, I don't want to say poisoned, but he's been drugged. And you see just figures, and you hear two gunshots, and just, yeah, like the scene was about him getting killed, but it was on her, and seeing her reaction to it was very powerful. And I think it was probably the most powerful moment in the movie. And then seeing the real people. I think he said something to the effect of revolutionaries never die or something like that. And to know that his son is the chairman of the Black Panther Party that still exists today. And I think it really showed that the Black Panther Party, at least from their portrayal and from what I read, they were trying to do good things in the community, and they were trying to make the Black community not so sufficient on a system that was biased against them, that, didn't care if their kids didn't have breakfast to eat before they went off to school. And so I think you'll hear lots of people say this and that about the Black Panther Party, but they were very committed to doing stuff in the community. And a lot of their ideas that were radical back then are not so radical now. Like, of course, if there was a group of people who wanted to feed children and to educate them, we would say go for it, especially during a pandemic. But, just in normal times, we would say that is awesome. But because it was the focus on educating the Black children, the Black man, the Black women, it was considered radical at the time.
To take a movie like this and to show, just a holistic approach to what the Black Panther Party was doing, like you just pointed out, I think that, it lends to the historical credibility of something like this film.
And it shows their humanity. It shows that they had hopes and dreams, and they were so young. He was 21 whenever they killed him. 21. Whenever I was 21, I was not leading a political uprising or caring about little kids in the community who needed things to eat. So yeah, he was a very inspiring person, and that's why they felt so threatened by him.
Well said. Cornelius Hawker, thank you so much for coming on, buddy. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks so much, Sam. Glad to be back whenever you want me.
And finally, the last movie I saw as part of Sundance was Prime Time, a Polish film about a hostage situation in 1999. I don't speak Polish and know very little to nothing about Polish culture, but none of that mattered here. That's the beauty of good storytelling and good performances. This is a thriller, with a few shifts in tone here and there, but the tension is palpable throughout. The young man playing our lead, Sebastian, does an excellent job playing a troubled character on the edge of losing his mind, and I really enjoyed getting to unravel his backstory through negotiators while law enforcement officials try to figure out how to rescue the hostages. Honestly, I knew very little of this film going in because it's not something I'd normally have the opportunity to see, so I'm very grateful to Circle Cinema and the Sundance Film Festival for bringing me that opportunity. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd like to send a special thank you to Cornelius Hawker and Joe Cappa. That's it, folks. Have a good one.